August 2008. It's sometime late in the month. Summer just ended, and I'm at the beginning of my sophomore year in high school. As I make my way to the lunchroom, I see the faces of many people, some old and some new. The freshmen, the juniors, the seniors. It's another school year. 1 year closer to graduation. 1 year closer to the end of this track. I begin to reminisce on the events of the past 3 months. The hangouts, the late nights, a summer fling that still hurts a little, and a 24-hour bus ride back home from Idaho. In my reflection, it feels like I keep getting lost in some stray thoughts. A lot of other serious things begin to loom over me. The death of my friend Christian just 6 months ago, arguments that I've had with my parents, the state of my grades to come, and yet most of all, the realization that even if I do graduate, what am I able to do? I have no papers, neither do my parents, so there is no route for my future there. At this time, the dream act is yet to be established, and the only dream I hold on to is maybe joining the Navy someday. But as an illegal, I have no idea how I will even achieve that. As I hold on to my backpack and begin to get lost in my thoughts, I focus on my close accomplishments that I have in front of me. Class with my friends, soccer, Spanish club, even our mandated ESL class with Mr. March, reunited with some other classmates, and even sparking new flames to get rid of the fling's pain. It's all still early, and I can only predict what will happen to me. As I reach the lunchroom and see the familiar faces, I begin to forget. All the thoughts, the negative and the positive, are gone for these moments, and I begin anew. It's only the first day, but at least for these next 7 hours, I don't have to think of what waits for me out there. A brief respite from the real world, what is yet to catch up to me ahead, and how much I will go through. Among screenings and catching up, comparing schedules, and even choosing new classes, it all fades away. For these next hours of my days, I can be me, and I don't have to worry about anything, just catching up and getting done with it. The bell rings. I stand up, excuse myself in our usual way, and I continue towards my first class of the day. Welcome. Welcome back. Welcome home. These halls to me, I hear them say. So it's been just about a month or so, just a little bit over a month since this last graduating class of high school, as well as the middle schoolers, and then even the kids going from elementary school that just got promoted to go to middle school. And first off, to every single one of you, I do mean that, I want to say congratulations. If you are somebody who has kids, if these are your siblings, cousins, families, friends, be proud of them. Be very proud of them. Give them that positive feedback about what they are going through right now. Because I can still remember back then, it wasn't much of a big deal, but it was still good to hear somebody say, you know what, congratulations, it's a great thing. You're achieving a certain level of success, and this is a great success. Not everybody has this opportunity to be able to get a free education, and even though it does come with a certain bit of caveats, a couple things that have to be taken into account, it's, at least for the most part, it's free. And I know that because I graduated from the American school system. I am one of the childs of the product of the No Child Left Behind initiative from the Bush administration. And I want to try to go into that a little bit more in detail, a little bit further on in this episode. But the one thing I want to talk about is with graduation and with a couple of the things that are being brought to my attention that I've seen on Instagram and even news reports, and things that just kind of are just alarming. They're a little bit concerning, more than usual, just because it goes to show a lot of the things that we still have to go through. And I have my own personal story about how it is that we have to continuously keep proving ourselves that our cultures, our heritage, our pride are something to be celebrated, just like every other culture, every other heritage. And the things I want to touch on about today is going to be about the recent situations with a couple of the graduations where Hispano, Latinos, Latinx students have been either barred, have been told that they cannot represent their country, that they cannot be proud of where they come from, that they have to be forcibly established to represent the country that they are in. But on the backside, on the other side, if you want to display some sort of national pride, some sort of incentive or even initiative to be able to celebrate culture, it's allowed. And I'll go into that a little bit more because I think that's a little bit vague. But as well, I also want to talk about how the education system in the United States has changed so much. And I'll start off with that, with how the education system has started to change and shifted so much on a downward spiral, where a lot of the classes that I took, a lot of the courses and educational summaries and syllabuses that I know helped me and I still use in some part to this day, have been removed or have just been outright forgotten for this new initiative of, and I don't want to say a downsizing, dumbfounding of this next generation, but in a personal perspective, it seems like they are being made useless. It seems like kids and students are being made useless, and it's affecting even more our community. It's affecting even more the Hispano-Latino community a little bit more. Because now we fall back on that whole situation of having to find respite, having to find refuge, and trying to locate a place where we belong. And those things usually lead us into a different path, into a location where we probably shouldn't be at. And I will definitely touch on where that goes, because I almost fell into that trap. I definitely steered away from it due to a lot of influential people in my family, and as well influential people while I was in school. So, to start it off, I can't really say that I follow the educational system too much, especially a lot with the changes of what the curriculum kind of entails. But there are actually a couple things that are, like I said, a little bit concerning with the way things are shifting, especially in the situation where what's being taught to these kids. Now, I've seen the ridiculous jokes and the memes about how it takes us 20 minutes to figure out an assignment, helping out either your siblings, your students, your kids, your nephews, whichever it is. But you as an adult, anybody who's been at a school system, at least for the past 5 years, can look at these videos and can attest to that if they've been in front of any of these math assignments or these educational new initiatives, I'll call it like that, have found it very difficult to even relate, much less be able to assist their kids, just because it's creating a weird gap in between what we know and what they know. So going back to the whole thing about the ridiculous videos, like where it takes us 20 minutes to be able to help these kids out, it's on the inverse as well, where they're showing these kids, they're showing these students that the method that they're being taught is a roundabout way of doing it. Where I've seen that continuously viral video about the teacher explaining that math problem, the whole breakdown of the entire math problem. And then in the inverse on that same video on a split screen, there's a person, I'm guessing somewhere between their 20s and 30s, that is doing the same exact math assignment and is literally able to complete it within 15 seconds. Let's put it like that. Within 15 seconds, 30 seconds, somewhere around there. And as this lady, as a teacher, I guess, is still explaining the breakdown of how to be able to basically separate out an entire math problem, the entire multiplication time, the video is showing the dude just doing already this outrageous other things, making food, walking a dog, cleaning, whatever it is. But as comical as that is, as a parody, I guess it would seem, that's actually a very satirical observation of how the educational system really is working nowadays. Where, and this isn't a conspiracy, this isn't a personal experience type of thing. This is what I've been able to observe, as well as what I've been able to talk to with my comadres, with two of my friends from when I was in school that have actually had experience as substitute teachers. And they have seen a lot of shifts and changes in the educational field where things really don't benefit the students, as well as they don't benefit the teachers. But sticking on the fact of the students, it's kind of ridiculous where, in all honesty, it seems like they're being dumbed down. And not to say that every single generation or the previous generation or the last class that was in school is any smarter than the one that is currently here, that is currently attending school. It's like, ultimately, and I will say this very clearly and openly, people, human beings, us as creatures, and not even excluding myself in any way, us as creatures, us as people, we're stupid. We are very much stupid, because we will find ourselves in very easily misunderstandable situations. We will make ridiculous assumptions. And in that assumption phase, or in that trying to figure out stage and phase, we just can't make things work. We can't assimilate. It just doesn't work. I know that because I've been caught in many multiple situations like that. That's why I said I am just as stupid as any of the other persons out there. And I bring it up like that because it's easy to understand the fact that you can be intelligent, but you can also be stupid. We have honestly attributed that to street smarts versus book smarts. You might be able to know what the country in that Middle East location with that strange culture is, but you won't be able to negotiate your way out of an altercation. And in the same way, you won't know what the founding articles of the oligarchies of whatever Eastern European kingdom is what do you call it is, or even the name of the kingdom or the people that were there during that time in like the early 1100s. But you can bullshit the hell out of trying to pay a ticket or play a person and just lie directly to the face. So that's what I mean with that. Now, going back to the whole student aspect, it does seem like they're trying to dumb it down. Like I said, not a conspiracy, not a thing, from personal observation. This is one of those things that is a little concerning because I've had my fair share of interactions with kids. My younger sister is currently still in school, and I kind of find myself a little bit astounded by how much they know and how much they don't know. And I mean to the effect of how much is easily and readily available for them to be able to succeed, to be able to make things so much easier. But in that effect, whatever was made easy for them is also hindering them. This all connects back to the educational system because these are a lot of things that are taught in school. These are a lot of the day-to-day interactions that help a growing, developing person, a growing, developing mind be able to, one, assimilate, not be indoctrinated, no, easily assimilate to their surroundings, to be able to interact in a very social level, in a very easily behavioral level, in a relationship kind of way with their classmates, with their surroundings. Where in science, the hypothesis, the question on what if I do this, do I expect A and B to come out? That's a useful situation, and that's useful in any situation. You can apply that to everyday life. If I leave at 10 o'clock in the morning and it takes me about 15 minutes to drive, what is the expectation of the time that I'll arrive? That's an easy change both in mathematics and in science. You're bringing up a question, but you're also applying the time scale in between there. The other thing in English, it's a very interesting thing, because the interaction that I had in English brought about a minor altercation with the teacher. And I still remember this, to where I felt I was made to feel stupid for having an opinion. And I can definitely say this, that this gentleman, this teacher, this educator had years on me. He more than certainly had a education in English and his master's and whatever the case was. But the fear, and I can't even say the factful fear or the realization that somebody was stepping up to him, as like we like to say, or that somebody was challenging on the reasoning of the curriculum. It just didn't click to him, or it did, and he's had it different interactions with other kids, and he just shut it down just like anybody else, like any other teachers or like any other situations that he's been in. And he never really faced forward to it, like, well, maybe if this child, this student is having an opinion on why we shouldn't be reading this book, and now me being the student, why we shouldn't be reading this book, should I listen out to him? No, I'm not going to listen to him. I'm the teacher, I'm the educator, I'm the one in charge here. I don't make the curriculum, but I'm going to follow the curriculum. I bring that up because with English, it's exactly as you're learning how to read, you're learning how to communicate, you're learning to be able to discern the different types of ways to be able to put things across. Not only in a statement kind of way, in an interrogatory kind of way, in an expressionary kind of way. No, you're also doing a debate. You're questioning, you're bringing in that hypothesis. You're bringing in the hypothesis and the questionary facts of what it is that makes certain things the way they are. Why are we reading these books? What's the message behind these books? Maybe if the character had done it in a whole different way, or hadn't thought about it in a different way, what else would they have learned? What else would they have not learned? How different would their experience have been if instead of choosing A, they chose B? Or what if there was no option B, and even though there was an option C, it led back to option B, which was a result of action C. So these are things that I personally figured out in the educational system for the English courses. A lot of this is really interesting, and even more so when I start to looking at it at a behavioral level, because now the ability to be able to question things, the ability to be able to make those decisions on the fly, or to question what you're learning, is being brought as a counter. Recently, I heard about the CRT situation with schools. Now, this is a new curriculum that probably a lot of people have heard and will more than likely keep hearing about, especially with the changes of what's going on in the United States. The CRT, critical race theory curriculum, is being introduced into a lot of places, into a lot of these school systems in the United States. A lot of the states have already started getting ready to implement it into the fall, within the beginning of their new semester or new school year. And I'm just going to touch on it real briefly, saying that a lot of groups are going against it because it's divisive, because it's an unnecessary curriculum. It's one of those things that shouldn't be taught. There's no necessity for it to be being taught. But why these questions? Why are they fighting against wanting to include the CRT curriculum? Those are things to ask themselves. Those are things to ask anybody who doesn't want the CRT curriculum to be taught in these classes. But I will vouch for it being taught, because it's something that has to be learned and has to be understood along with the rest of the curriculums and the American history that's being taught in the school system. So as a trade-off, if they're not going to be teaching viable skills to these kids, to these students anymore, where math is just becoming a convoluted system of numbers and workarounds to extend time periods, to extend workloads, and just to create unnecessary bloating of knowledge. It's all empty filler. if the questioning of science is no longer a rational way of trying to find answers or trying to disprove things logically, if the system of English is still on the fact of having to be able to debate, to be able to question the same things that a lot of these authors have of their society, of their educational system, of their communities, then what's the point of having these other classes and not being able to teach the kids any type of, actually, you know what, not even any other type of history, a very important part of history. And like I said, I will vouch for it, because the critical race theory, although it sounds like it should be a part of the college education, is not so, it's just not so hidden anymore. And it hasn't been for the past 20 years. It's slowly been revealing itself in a day-to-day life. And even more so now with the advancements of technology, with the availability of people being able to record and being able to distribute and disseminate information as quickly as possible. Just as we're able to easily disseminate and send out false information, I think it should be just as easy, and we should be able to take in real facts, real history, real lessons from what's happened in the past. I vouch for that because the times are changing. The tide is shifting, and what we're doing is, we're not doing enough, honestly, actually, to keep ourselves included, to be able to understand that us as minorities, us as kids of the product of ESL, are an influential part of how this country is made, of how this whole entire country is built. And I touch on that because, like I keep saying, I am a product of this educational system. I've learned a lot of things on my own, but the few things that I was taught in school, in my entire 12 years of school in the United States, was to be able to keep questioning things, to be able to keep asking the hard questions, to try to fight against why it is that we're even learning certain things. And if these things are so useful and viable, then I should have a reason to be able to use them. How does these things affect me? Now, I don't use a lot of math that was taught to me. Obviously, I'm not going to be using algebra 90% of the time. I'm not going to be using the Pythagorean theorem, f of g, or the mx theory, whichever one it is. Obviously not. But it's there. It's there, and it's a required curriculum thing for whatever college education. But what I am going to be using is a lot of these communication skills, problem-solving skills. That's the underlying thing that the math classes actually taught me. That to every single question, there will be an answer, and the answer is easy and or difficult to figure out. It just is. Now, that's just a simple point that I want to put into the educational system, what I was able to take out from what I was taught. That's how a lot of people like to say it. When am I ever going to use this again? Well, on a subconscious level, you use it more often than you think you do. But I'll leave that to you as a listener to be able to figure that out on your own. It's something that you have to figure out on your own. Now, going back to the critical race theory, I'm going to touch about information in the critical race theory. Things that should be taught with this new curriculum is the actual true history of the United States. Not just the Louisiana Purchase, not just the establishment of Oregon Country, the Alamo, Texas, or the Manifest Destiny. No, let's have it be taught. Let's have it be understood that this country is no more innocent than any other country in the world. That the realization that this country, just as any other country, was founded on horrendous acts and egregious actions towards indigenous people, people of color, minorities, and every single type of way and culture is something that has to be understood and has to be taught. Because either way, at a certain point, even if it isn't taught, when we start looking outside of how things are outside of the school system, at that point, we're already a part of the system. We're already just a perpetuating cycle of things to continue without our own knowledge, without our own consent in this situation. Things that, along with the critical race theory, should be understood is that not everybody else fits in this whole race narrative. We can't continuously keep identifying kids and children just because of the color of their skin as an individual of such ethnic group. Yes, we belong to certain subsections when it comes to a categorizing, but it should also be understood and taught that just because the color of your skin, just because of where you come from, doesn't make you any less of a person. Because you breathe, you bleed, you speak, you think, you see, you do anything and everything that any other person does, just in a very different way, due to your circumstances, due to where you grew up, due to how you grew up. Things also that should be understood with this is that it's okay to be proud of where you are, where you come from, what you do, and that history is not fair to everybody and anybody. And I say this more as a minority than I do as if I were a Caucasian man. Let's jump over to the whole situation with this whole heritage thing. I wasn't even talking. I've been seeing a lot of Instagram posts and Facebook posts from people in my community about a lot of these graduating classes and how some of these schools, some of these classes are barring kids from being able to represent themselves as an accomplishment, be able to represent their cultures and their heritage as an accomplishment as they walk down the stage to receive their diploma. Now, before I get into what they did, how they did, and everything, let me make this clear. And let me have you understand this very, very specifically. The way that these students were doing what they did was neither disruptive, offensive, nor was it anywhere near on the borderline of infringing on anybody else's rights. And I want to make that clear because the narrative will always be shifted in blame towards the student. But the administration will not take any responsibility for misinforming these students or lack thereof information, I should say. So I, as a prior student, I, as a minority, I, as an ESL kid, I side with these students because they should be proud of where they came from. They should be proud to be able to represent their country. Any student should be proud to represent their country, their heritage in any way possible. And I do mean that any student. Had I seen any other student or any of these classes of kids on these Instagram posts with other flags, could be from anywhere, could be from everywhere. It could even be the American flag or something representing the American flag. It would be great. It would be good. Because at that point, we're understanding and realizing that we're all coming together. We're all here. And that banner, even if it's being taken by somebody, is still something of pride. These posts show and explain the situation with a lot of these students that are about to graduate. A lot of them Hispanic, a lot of them from Mexico. And a lot of how essentially they all read is student is banned from receiving diploma. Student is banned from walking the stage for graduation. Student is being asked or ostracized by the school administration to remove set material, set flag, set representation from their attire, from their clothes, or they will not be able to receive their diploma or graduate. And in 90% of these cases and situations, it's always going to be the flag. And the ones that I have seen have been the Mexican flag. Now, here's where I will argue to that completely on behalf of the students, and I will cite as a person who likes administrative issuings, is that they truly did nothing wrong, the students, by wearing the flag. Because one, they were not misrepresenting, they were not altering their attire, and they were not being offensive nor degrading towards any other student or the code of conduct of a student in their school. And I do side with that because every single code of conduct in each and every single school is literally a cut and paste. And it's a cut and paste to where you can literally just grab it, put it in somebody else's school with a different name, and it'll be exactly the same. Now, a couple things that the schools and the administrations could have done is they could have been very clear about what and how they could represent if they were going to represent. A lot of the times I've always seen the cap and gown combination. The cap is always decorated, the top of the cap, and that's a continuous tradition. And yet nobody in the administration raises an arm or bats an eye about these students putting in their class graduation number, their jersey number, whatever they want to decorate it with, because it's there. But the moment a flag is put on them, a representation of their culture and their accomplishments as one, and I'll say it like this, as an ethnic minority in the United States, it just becomes controversial. It becomes like, you can't do that. But why not? Like I said, they're not disrespecting anybody. They're not being offensive towards anybody. They really aren't. That's what I want to get across with that. A couple of these things, like I'm saying, is that they could have done if they could have literally 100% put out a basic guidance memo to the entire school prior to this whole graduation situation to stop a fiasco like this. And I will even say it like this, and I quote, that this memo will read like this, and I quote, "For those graduating students in the class of 2021, such attire at times shall be kept within respectable means and will not have any signs, symbols, tearing, or offensive materials. The cap and gown combination shall be worn in a respectable manner." In parentheses, if the student should choose to decorate their cap, the previous apply. End parentheses. Restricted materials and restricted attire to be worn with the cap and gown combination. No student at any time shall willingly carry the flag of any such nation with the combination of the cap and gown, but exceptions shall be made for the decoration of the cap or a scarf/sash in such dimensions of 7 feet by 5 inches to be worn smartly around the neck, unquote. Literally, 100% literally, something as simple as that. What that does, it establishes one, the narrative, not even that. One, it establishes 100% clearly the policy of what can and cannot be done, or what they want the students to be able to do while they're in this whole graduation factor. This is a very serious and it's a very great thing to be able to achieve. But they could have saved themselves so much face. They could have saved themselves so much grief and so much backlash had they put out a simple memo. And I get it that some people will not agree with, well, a memo can only do so much. Well, what if I want to wear my flag? What if I can't find a flag? And anything is like I said, it could have been put out ahead of time. There's other ways. And I'm not saying don't side with it. I'm not saying side with it. I'm not saying I'm against them for it in that situation. Just the biggest thing here is that the administration was wrong in the way that they've handled a lot of these issues. Were the students wrong? No. Can it be looked at as a disrespectful way to be carrying around a flag of a different country? In a sort of manner, yes, but it also depends on what they're doing with this flag while they're carrying it around. Like I said, in 90% of these situations, what I was able to see, what I was able to read, and what I was able to witness for whatever video evidence or photographic evidence was provided, is that these students were literally carrying it around their neck or had it draped behind them as if it were a sash to be able to be displayed honorably and pridefully for their accomplishments, for their heritage, for their backgrounds. So these students did literally nothing wrong. Like I said, the administration handled it incorrectly. They handled it very, very wrong. And that's one of the issues that I had with it. Like I said, that wouldn't have fixed every single situation, but it would have definitely gave them a little bit leverage. It would have given them a little bit more face to save had they brought out some sort of actual guidance or a specific memo pertaining to their and such, the graduations, the cap and gown combination wearing, and what attire and things shouldn't be or aren't allowed. Never a simple solution, but there is always a way to be able to get to a solution. Now, it's been just a little bit. Actually, it's been 10 years exactly since I graduated high school, and it's been about 14 years since I started high school. And looking back on it, there were always a lot of situations and a lot of things that I ran into that it seems not that I was immature at the time, but that I handled it as a young adult, but with very mature outlooks. Because talking about it ultimately with everything that's been going on with the school system, with the educational system, with the representation of minorities, with everything that's happening, especially with the implications of not wanting to have the critical race theory be taught as a curriculum in class, with the way that the educational system is being brought out to kind of be almost unnecessary at this point, where it's just a churning cycle of people to I don't know, to something with them, as well as these altercations and these problems that administrators have issues with students representing themselves. Like, I want to talk about a final situation that occurred recently, and that I can attest to myself that we had, and I have had, a personal experience of that has happened to me in the very similar way with my group of friends and the group that was involved. Recently, the last situation that I heard of something occurring was with the Coronado school system, well, with the Coronado basketball team in San Diego, where after their victory against a predominantly Hispanic school, they decided to throw tortillas, just fling tortillas at them and losers and chants in celebration. Now, the administration and the coach and this whole situation just seems really off taste of how they went about it, because their justification was that they threw them in celebration. But how do you go ahead and throw tortillas at somebody in celebration? One, that's completely racially disrespectful. There's a very clear and cut indication and implication right there of what they were intending to do. The second was that the way the administration handled part of it was saying that we're not racist, essentially. That's not exactly what they say, but they said it basically, we're not racist. We also have people of minority in our faculty. I was like, good for you, honestly, good for you. That's how they're saying it. Like, good for you. But I mean, I think a lot of schools should have minorities and people of different cultures and ethnicities and backgrounds in their educational system. I mean, that's kind of a given if you really think about it. But that was their second justification, that they're not racist, or the act of what they did was not racist. The other thing about that is funny and interestingly hilarious, is because had we done anything of that sort, and I'm talking about me in my school system, had that happened to us, it wouldn't have been as cut and dry. People would have gone to jail. Somebody would have gotten hurt. And more than likely, we would have been suspended for the next year. Because not so much about, oh, this generation is soft. Oh, no. We understood the boundaries between what was allowed and what we could do. And at a certain point, like I said, this was me, and I can definitely say for my group of friends and the people that I was in sports teams with, we would have taken hands. We would have thrown hands, and it would have made it a crazy story to tell now. But I bring that up about the whole tortilla situation with the San Diego County schools and them being predominantly Hispanic, and their justification is because I experienced a personal episode of similar racism. Now, I'm going to go only into it briefly as to not drag it out, but during a lot of the times, obviously during high school, there's morale celebrations and pep rallies and stuff. And one of the events during this previous to homecoming, it was that we all decided to gather up our friends and our people to start in a dodgeball tournament. And our team was made up of 90% Hispanics, Hispanos, and one or two guys from the soccer team that were white, that were Caucasian. And throughout this whole entire thing, we were literally facing off against every single other group in the school. We were going up against people who were in the football team, the basketball team, the track team, but 90% of these other teams were very cliquey. And I do mean that very cliquey because they were either the what would be kind of considered, quote unquote, the traditional jock, the traditional popular kids, or the subsects of sorts, right? And like I said, this is a small town. This is Fernley, Nevada, in between 2007 to 2011. So we entered the dodgeball tournament, and we went through it unscathed. We beat everybody. This group of people, this group of Hispano Latinos in the dodgeball tournament, and I'm just gonna say it. Our name was literally the Ice Runners. I I.C.E runners. So yeah, we kind of brought that on ourselves, but that was the whole reason for it. Like, look, 90% of us are Hispano Latinos. Pretty sure most of us are either papers, no papers, whatever it is. We called ourselves the Ice Runners. It's still funny now. It's still funny back then, and it's going to continue to be funny, no matter how you look at it. But we literally took on the other 5-6 teams in the dodgeball tournament, and we won. To the other teams, it was due to a technicality, but regardless, it is what it is. We won. We literally won the entire tournament. We finished the tournament. We received the bracket, and at the very end of the entire tournament, we were told that all we would receive for our accomplishment as the as the Ice Runners, as the winners of this dodgeball tournament, who beat out every other team, predominantly white, predominantly jocks, predominantly popular kids, we would only receive the bracket sheet showing that we had won. And we were wondering, because we were a little bit thrown back, because we knew that there was a trophy. We knew that there was a trophy. There was talk about a trophy being given out for the winning team. And we were questioning. We talked to the officials, who were other teachers and things like that. And they told us, like, no, there's no trophy. There was never any trophy. And it's like, what do you mean there was never any trophy? Like, literally the emails that were sent out to the teachers, the announcers, were, it's like, there's going to be, you guys are going to win. It's for the pep rally, and there's going to be a trophy at the end. It's like, man, like something to boast about, something that, like, hey, like whatever the case is, like us as a group, as an individuals, we were going to be competing, and we were going to try to win, and we won. So at the very end of that, we didn't get anything, like I said, but the bracket. We took our picture, and that was one of the greatest accomplishments we had done, is because a lot of us were on the soccer team. We were 90% of us were on the soccer team. 90% of us were Hispano Latino, and or of ethnic descent of sort. And we had beat all of the quote unquote top tier athletes at the school. We had outright beat them, fair and square. So this was the day of the tournament. The next day, we get to the lunchroom, and we start talking. And somebody told us, they came up to our group, who was somebody we knew, somebody that we had good rapport with, and they came up to us, and they had done some sort of investigation. They had done their own inquiry on things, I'll put it like that. And when they went to go talk to the teachers and everything, and they went to talk to the other teams and everything, they told us, hey guys, so you guys really won't believe, like, this is some ridiculous bullshit. It's like, so there was a trophy. So all of us were like, what are you talking about? Like, they told us there was no trophy. We had technically accepted it at that time. But even if we had accepted it, we're still just like, okay, dude, so what do you mean? It's like, yeah, no, I talked about it. I looked, and I even overheard some of the other teams saying it. And they had talked to whatever it was, the officials and everything. And they said, like, yeah, there's a trophy. It's like, yeah, we're just not going to give it to them. It's like, it's because they won. It's because they won. It's like, what do you mean? And he told us, like, yeah, like, legitimately, the only reason why the trophy wasn't given to you guys, or you guys didn't receive the trophy, and they were just kind of like, oh my God, they won, we're not going to give them the trophy. Yeah, no, we're just going to deny that there's any trophy. That's the only reason why you guys didn't get a trophy. And we were fucking pissed about it. Like, we were 100% pissed about it, because it was a really, really clear and open admittance that just because we were 90% Hispano Latino, and we were expected to basically lose within the first rounds, and we won, that was the main reason why they didn't give us the trophy. Now, even to this day, thinking about it, it is a little bit of speculation, but it makes sense. It makes sense in a lot of ways. It really does make sense in a lot of ways, because subconsciously, and even under the water, our group, our people, our group of friends experienced a very specific type of under the water racism in a small town and community like Fernley, Nevada, where even as of recently, there's been different types of accusations that the town is very racist, that there's been allegations of assault and some sort of segregation, things like that. And I think that's in a lot of schools. But thinking about it now, we did experience a lot of just really, really weird and understandable racism, whether it was from that whole school system about, well, not even the school system, just whether it was as something as simple as winning a dodgeball game to being the Spanish club, doing our celebration dances, even speaking Spanish around each other or in class. We would still get ostracized. We would still get that whole, well, why are you guys even speaking Spanish? It's like, this is America. It's like, good for you. This is America. But last time I checked, there wasn't an actual official language for the United States. Even in middle school, when we were on the early steps of creating a gang organization, and not for malicious acts, not for control or power, but for personal protection, like 90% of gangs have. Like, I won't even put a number to it. Like, the majority of gangs have always been created to be able to protect themselves and to be able to protect them people and their community. Just like that, even we were pulled in together and told that what we were doing was very gang related. And we did it for a specific reason. Because we were trying to protect ourselves from the jocks. We were trying to protect ourselves from this other group that in future dates literally proved to be the only opposing force of us as Hispano-Latinos that actually identified openly. And now that I'm an adult, I understand a lot of these things very clearly, where I'm sure a lot of my fellow classmates have changed their opinions or have doubled down on their opinions regardless. But that's just how it happened with me. That's some of the experiences that I've had during school, where being open and being overt about who you are is a negative light, is going to bring some sort of ire from the administration, from other students who don't understand the culture, from this systematic questioning of, well, you're in America, well, you're in the United States of America, why are you so open about representing Mexico? Why are you speaking Spanish? Why are you doing what you're doing? And I would always respond to them. It's like, well, it doesn't hurt you. Why do you care? What is so harmful about what I'm doing, about being prideful, being very proud of where I am, where I've been told, well, why don't you go back to Mexico? It's like, you know what? I'm not even here by my own choice, but I'm here. Being able to speak Spanish openly and not be told to not speak it. Things like that. And I'll say it like this because it should be heard, and I want it to be heard this way. To you, out of what you hear, out of what people say, out of what anybody in life has questioned you on, as a student of ESL, as a minority in the United States, as any type of kid growing up in this country where you are told to not belong, where you are told to assimilate, to get with the times, to become as much a part of the culture as possible, understand this and know this is the true thing about the United States of America, is that it is made up of many cultures. It is made up of many people. It is made up of so many situations and so many things that there is no one true definition of what it is to be an American in the United States of America. So be you, be proud. Represent where you come from, wherever it may be that you come from. Stick to your roots. Let the questions come in. And if the questions are even more questionable than what they're actually asking, don't begin to question your beliefs. Don't begin to question your culture. Don't begin to question your upbringing of wherever you are. Because only you understand that. And the people around you who wish to understand it will ask these questions. And anybody willing to want to learn, to want to actually be genuinely a part of wanting to be with you, regardless of where you come from, and don't have to continuously question you why you're speaking your language, why you're representing people like that, why you can't just be an American. Double down on it. Be overt about it. Represent yourself and represent your people. And this goes for anybody and everybody. Because at the very end of the day, at the very end of anything and everything, there's no need or explanation or justification to be who you are. The education system will eat you up. The world, the culture, the place that you're surrounded by will eat you up. But don't let those things that take you in be the things that bring you down. Double down. Be proud of where you are. Be proud of who you are. And be proud of what you're going to achieve. Because remember, just like Dave told you, this is America. And I think to be here as a person of ethnic descent, of a different culture, is truly as American as you can be.